Okay, so in this video, I'm going to cover the difficult topic of basically what I want to call the healing timeline. So you're diagnosed with Crohn's and how long it takes until you're in remission, right? Does it take 6 months, 6 years? Never. Does it ever happen? There's obviously like no cure for Crohn's. It's a disease you're going to have and you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. There's people in groups that kind of just expect, that they're going to be in some point in the future where they're going to never have to worry about food. They think there's going to be some point where they can just stop worrying about diet and just go back to eating Mountain Dew and supersized McDonald's Big Macs and not really care about their body, which I think is silly regardless if you have a disease or not. Like, this is your only body. You got to take care of it. It's more than obvious. Everyone knows McDonald's is not healthy. It's not good to put in your body. So I don't understand why people like willingly put that in their body. It doesn't make sense when there's so much data. Like, this is not 1986 where we're kind of unaware of the effects. There's been tons of research and stuff, but that's another rant. Let's get into the video. All right, so the first part of the timeline is when the symptoms start happening. So this is before diagnosis. You're sick. You're throwing up. You don't know what's going on. You're probably losing weight. You're very tired. When I was diagnosed, I was in my first year of college. We call it university in Canada. I was sick. I didn't know what was causing it. I thought it was the cafeteria food. I thought I was just getting sick of the awful food they had. Turns out I don't think it was that bad. It was probably better than most schools. But everyone I was with was always complaining about the food, saying it's gross. And so I kind of got that mentality too. I'm like, you know what, this food is gross. And so I would just like end up going down for dinner and I would just have I'd get a plate of food and then like 4 glasses of milk and I'd just drink all the milk, which ended up being a trigger for my Crohn's later on. But I would just like drink the milk, ditch the food and go back upstairs and just like go to sleep at if that was lunch, I'd go to sleep. It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm already tired, which, didn't make sense being someone who's young and shouldn't be so tired all the time. So when these symptoms start coming on, maybe you had to pause school or get sick leave at work, etc. Luckily, this kind of happened near the end of my first year of school. When I went home, the symptoms really kicked in because I, started actually going, I started a summer job and that really brought bigger symptoms and intensified the flare. That's when we started pushing doctors like, we need an answer. What's causing this? He's puking randomly. He's lost a ton of weight. He's sleeping. He's sick. He's got a ton of pain. And in Canada, I don't know how it is in the US, but in Canada, healthcare is really slow. It took like forever to get diagnosed. Okay, so let's just say depending on the healthcare you have, it could take up to a year to get diagnosed. So at this point, the doctor will put you on prednisone. That's generally the first move when someone gets diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And prednisone is going to help you get out of like a spiraling flare. You got tons of pain, you can't eat. Prednisone is going to kind of it has a ton of side effects, so you don't want to get used to it. Like I see people talking about like how they're just like on it and they don't really care to like get off it. They're eating like junk food, and I'm like, why? Like, you should be like, as soon as you're on this drug, your mind should be, okay, I want to get off this drug. How am I going to get off this drug? So hopefully you're just on it for, 8 weeks or something. I think that was what's normal. It's been like a few years now, but I think it was like 8 weeks or maybe it was 12 weeks or something. And then you eventually taper off. There's like a way of getting off it because you can't just cut it cold turkey. And then your doctor's going to like start discussing long-term medications that you're going to take for multiple years, and have the same idea with that is that you eventually want to get off those long-term medications. But he's going to start discussing, Humira is a big one, Remicade, Entyvio, I think a lot of people are talking about. There's a selection of different ones based on your coverage and how much money they cost, and whether or not you can give yourself needles or if you need to go to the hospital because you're someone who just can't get over the thought of needles. I used to be so afraid of needles. First time giving blood, because I was getting my wisdom teeth taken out by surgery, I actually passed out giving blood, and like I just saw my own blood and I just passed out, woke up. They said the wrong code. I think they called like code blue or something. And I'm not familiar with the hospital codes, but it wasn't code blue. Like, code blue was something actually important. I just kind of passed out like just from seeing blood. But I woke up with like 6 nurses and 2 doctors around me. It was pretty crazy. Like, everyone that was close in the hospital like rushed, and I woke up and I'm like, whoa, I'm okay, guys. It was just gross. It was just blood. And then, now I give myself methotrexate and Humira shots like it's nothing. Like it's just another Friday. So the meds are going to start. You'll figure out, what insurance is going to cover you for and what's going to work best with your lifestyle. And hopefully you're going to start a medication. Nurse comes over to your house usually. Will like show you different places. Like my Humira, they were showing me to like put it in my quads. I was so skinny. Like I was just so nervous of hitting something. I had no fat like anywhere. The only place I could find fat properly, they had me doing it in my legs for a bit, and then I switched to my gut, my stomach, and that seems to be a little bit safer. I find I'm not so nervous of hitting something there. Based on what I see other people saying when trying meds and whatnot, is like 80% of the time. Again, I'm not a scientist. This is just kind of a stat based on observation. I'd probably say 80% of the time the meds are going to work or have some sort of positive effect on you. 20% of the time you're going to have some sort of reaction, or they're not going to work, or there's just going to be some sort of complication and you're going to have to go on to another medication. So when the medication starts working, life's not perfect. You still have triggers, you still have flares, you still have to watch all these different things, but there should be days that are good. You should have good days. So I'm going to say kind of this is where the point where the work starts. So this medication now, if you have a medication that works and you're just newly diagnosed, newly on the medication that's working, you've kind of bought time. It's not forever. This medication is not going to work forever. So don't act like you are going to be on it forever and just happily living without symptoms. Do not get in that mindset. Too many people are in that mindset. They get on the medication and they just want to, kind of forget they have Crohn's and just go live the typical unhealthy lifestyle of not exercising and eating junk food, just like normal people in the Western world. And they go online, 8 years later, 18 or 28 or 30, a whole bunch of years later, and they say, oh, this drug isn't working anymore. I need help, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of shrug like, this was expected, though. This isn't a surprise. You know this drug wasn't going to work forever. And then they have to go on another drug. If already in the first 10 years you guys switch drugs, and so the next drug only lasts 10 years, like you eventually run out of drugs, and that's a really, really bad place to be in. Like one of the nurses told me, and it's sad. One of the nurses told me, some people never get a handle on their Crohn's disease. And she said, those people die. It's a sad reality. You got to get a handle on this disease. It doesn't matter if it takes every last ounce of effort. You have to get a handle on your disease. It's a serious, serious, serious situation. So as soon as you're on the drug and you start buying time, you need to start identifying triggers. Now, I go into different triggers in my book, but I'm going to cover some of the basic, most popular ones right now. Stress, lack of sleep, bad diet, exhaustion. Those are probably some of the biggest triggers that you're going to find. When you start working on your diet, now I've watch all my videos about diet. I go over this, like I believe in diet huge. Like over 70% of your problems can be fixed with proper diet. That's a huge, huge chunk. And something I'm just going to reiterate is when you're coming up with your diet, be very careful when you eliminate foods or whitelist foods. When you have something like you have eggs in the morning and you're like, ooh, that really hurt my stomach. Consider the fact that there's other ingredients sometimes with the eggs. Maybe you added butter in your frying pan. Oh, you didn't think of that because if you're like me, you didn't think of that. Like when I got Crohn's, I didn't really think of the small things. Like, could that little bit of butter really? Yeah, it could. It did. It did affect me, and the eggs were fine. Just like eating a chicken burger or something. You go to a restaurant, order a chicken burger, and guess what? A lot of them put butter on the bun. You believe that? They put butter on the bun. So one thing I noticed, my mom and I noticed, she doesn't have IBD, but she has probably a tighter diet than I do. She has more stomach issues. And one thing we figured out was like so many restaurants and cooks and chefs and even people in the family, they had butter to things just to kind of like cheat. Like if you can't make your recipe work, like you're just like, this doesn't taste that great. Just pour a bunch of butter on it. And then this awful recipe is like, wow, this is actually really good, Cheryl. What'd you put in this? Just butter. It's such a cheat. It's such a cheat that restaurants use. If you're like, this tastes good, it probably has butter in it. It's probably not actually like chef's perfection. Like it's probably not like perfected spices or anything like you're thinking. It's probably just has a bunch of butter in it and you're like, wow, this tastes really good. But anyways, like dairy is not an issue for everyone. 30% of people with IBD still can eat dairy. It's like 70% can't in my studies, in my tests. Also, you're going to need to join a gym, or you should join a gym. You're going to say, if you're like me, you're probably going to say like, oh, I've never belonged to a gym. I never went to a gym. Well, now it's time to seriously consider it. Exercise, I mean real exercise, like intense exercise. I don't mean just going for a leisure bike ride with a family. I mean real sweating, high heart rate, sometimes it's not just sweating and high heart rate. you could put your body under extreme stress by just lifting extremely heavy weights, deadlifts and bench press and squats, the big barbell movements that basically take every muscle in your body to move a weight. And those movements will put a lot of stress on your CNS, and that'll help you grow. But when I say stress, I don't mean the stress we talked about earlier, mental stress. It's not associated. Your body can handle, your CNS should be able to handle physical stress, and that's basically going to help you grow. If there's one more thing I can iterate for this part of basically putting the work in, is do not slack. Do not be like, oh, this is great. I can eat corn again and popcorn and all these foods that you shouldn't be eating, but you just kind of fell victim to the cravings. And you're like, oh, what? I'm going to have. Don't fall victim. Don't be that person. Stay focused on your diet. Stay focused on your exercise. Stay focused on your sleep. Very, very important. You got to get your sleep and basically try to get extremely healthy and back to where you were, actually in a better condition probably. You hear my wrist cracking? In a better condition probably than even when you were, before being diagnosed, before the symptoms kicked in. I am now actually starting to get basically at the point where I'm in a better condition now post Crohn's than I was before Crohn's. That's how hard I've worked in the gym and with my diet. Another thing, you're going to come across surgeries likely. How many you need, it's going to depend on it's going to depend on your lifestyle. Eventually you're going to hit the point of remission. Or hopefully. That's the goal, right? If you put all the work in, you get things perfected, you live a perfectly healthy lifestyle, you should hit the point of remission. And some people, everyone seems to have this different definition of remission. I've always thought remission was like basically when you're off meds and there's basically you just don't need meds anymore, and you can you still have restrictions because you do have Crohn's disease, and it's not curable. It's not cured. You're just in remission, but you still have to follow some sort of lifestyle. That's always what I thought remission was. But some people think remission is like once you get on a medication that works, you're now in remission. But I guess everyone's definition is a little different. And then once you're in remission, you just kind of keep doing what you're doing. You're off the meds. Even when you're in remission, you're going to have to stick to your diet. You're going to have to stick to your exercise. You can't go off and miss the gym for 3 months. You got to stay on it. You can't, start eating a bunch of popcorn and all these things that you're not supposed to. Going to KFC every other day and getting a combo. Like, you can't be doing that, and you should never do that. Even a healthy person shouldn't do that. Being diagnosed with Crohn's disease is basically a lifelong commitment that you are now going to live healthy from here on out until the day you die. You're not going to eat junk. You're going to exercise. You're going to get your rest. You're not going to drink alcohol. If you're interested in understanding more of this, more of my journey, more of my battle, how I went from 105 pounds to 155, 160 pounds right now, and by the time you're watching this, probably even more. If you want to learn this journey, I cover it in my book. My book is on Amazon for pre-order. It's like $5. It's super cheap. Like, I'm not trying to make money off this. It's just, I think that there needs to be more information in the space of people who have went from being extremely skinny, extremely sick, and have actually become extremely healthy while on this disease. I don't want to just be average. I want to be healthy. I want to be defined as a healthy person. And so if you're kind of having the same mindset as me, check that out. Anyways, that's all I got for now. Any questions, let me know. Check out my other videos. Subscribe. I got new videos coming out all the time, so do check those out. Bye for now.